every day that goes by and we're not like over 150K around, Q4 or Q1 in the present time, to me is like a better chance that we're done with cycles and a better chance that there never were cycles. I do think the price goes way up over time. We'll be able to buy most products and services around the world priced in sats by 2035. In my view, just my own mental calculations, like I'd say this is like a near certainty, but certainly like over 90% for me that we, at some point between now and the end of this decade, are over $1 million a coin. So like, that's like my conservative case.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name is Aaron Arnold, joined with friend of the channel, the great, the powerful Cory Klippsten of Swan Bitcoin, one of the most legit, best places to buy and cost average Bitcoin. I'm on the Swan Force. I love the company. Cory, how are you doing today?
Hey, good to see you. Good to be back, and good to be here repping Bitcoin.
Great to have you here. For those who don't know about Swan, like what is it? Why would somebody choose Swan?
Yeah, so it's Swan Bitcoin. We just try to make it the best place to buy Bitcoin. And, I know a lot of people that watch your channel, been in the space for a while, mixing it up, maybe doing some trading, stuff like that. A lot of times we like to say that Swan is the most recommended or the best place, to have your auntie or your cousin or, somebody new to come to Bitcoin, because it is really important to get started with Bitcoin. Before you go and explore anything else, free world, obviously I'm a Bitcoin only guy, but I do believe in free markets and people should do, whatever the heck they want. But, I think a lot of honestly, like altcoiners, crypto fund managers, whatever, like they'll still send the people that they love to us because they know that we'll, not try to get them actively trading when they're not the type of person that ought to be actively trading. So it's really just about buying Bitcoin, accumulating. You can do one-time purchases. We very much encourage people to sign up for automatic recurring purchases, which is, I think, what you mentioned. So that's just automatically buying a little bit of Bitcoin every day, every week, or every month. So those plans are super easy to set up with Swan. And the fees are super low. It's like a little bit less than 1%, which is obviously way better than Coinbase app or Cash App, stuff like that. So that's a good place. We're your friendly Bitcoiners.
Definitely. That's one of the big reasons I like it, because when it comes to cost averaging, which, historically has always been a good move with Bitcoin, it's, the cheapest or one of the cheapest in the game. For people who, are, thinking about getting involved with that, when you look at the world today in 2021 going into 2022, what kind of things are happening in the world today that make you bullish on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just had an inflation print this morning of 6.8% year over year increase. So that's, I think, the highest since 1982. Even when you strip out food and fuel, it was like 4.5 or something like that, which was the highest since 1991. So either the highest in 40 years or the highest in 30 years, depending on how you look at it. And it's hard not to look at, the amount of money printing that we've been doing over the past couple of years, and not look at that and say like, wow, okay, yeah, everybody has way more money, and of course they're going to be spending it, and that money is based on nothing. And this seems to be like the prophecy foretold exactly what would happen. It's hard not to be worried, and it's hard not to be looking for a safe haven. And I think Bitcoin is the best safe haven there is in a world that's awash in cheap fiat, basically.
For sure. I think for me, it's a combination of that, the endless money printing, plus the ever increasing censorship. And Bitcoin is censorship resistant money and payments. I mean, the Ghislaine Maxwell trial tracker just got deleted off Twitter. It's kind of apples and oranges, but that's just one example of censorship. And in a world that seems to be trending more towards censorship, it seems like, Bitcoin's going to be more valued.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bitcoin is freedom money, and it's money you can't F with, right? So I think the Pelosi portfolio tracker got blocked as well.
Yeah,
I don't know what rationale Twitter has for banning these accounts. It doesn't make any sense. I haven't been able to dig into it, but I saw both of those yesterday. I don't know what's going on.
People say, Bitcoiners say that Bitcoin is the best savings asset of all time. Could you unpack that? Like, do you agree with that? And what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that's true, and we're headed in that direction. I mean, we've probably talked about this before of, kind of the evolution of a new money, and you've got to become a store of value first, and then you kind of move into medium of exchange, which is when people are actually spending it, and then eventually, if lots of people are spending in using a currency, then it becomes unit of account, and we start to think of the price of goods and services in terms of that asset. I think we're still early in the accumulation phase for Bitcoin. Like, I don't think we'll be at that point where we're saying like, okay, that's a mature store of value until the price is at least $1 million, maybe $5 million a coin. So I just think we're still pretty early in that. It's kind of a speculative store of value is probably a good way to term it right now. That said, if you have a really deep understanding of Bitcoin and a lot of conviction about Bitcoin, it may become your own standard today. You believe that it will hold its value or appreciate in purchasing power over time. And a lot of people, obviously like me and many others are pretty much living on a Bitcoin standard already. If not completely, then mostly, and thinking about Bitcoin as their long-term savings account, right? And and it's Bitcoin being the best store of value, or believing that it will soon become the best store of value that we've ever had as humans on this planet, that makes people decide to choose to use it as their long-term savings.
Mm-hmm. And I think once you really start to like learn about Bitcoin, and you really see that, maybe in the first 5 or 6 years, it was a lot easier to stop Bitcoin. And I mean, it's not completely, impossible to stop, I guess. It might be, but like at this point, it's very, very hard to stop Bitcoin because it's so distributed, so decentralized, so censorship resistant. So, that's a big reason for me why I think, well, I mean, maybe, people could like scare the price down in the market for a period of time, but on a long enough time scale, I don't see Bitcoin going away anytime soon. And since there is that finite supply, possibly demand will increase.
I think the increase in demand for Bitcoin over time and the adoption of more people wanting Bitcoin, storing more of their wealth in Bitcoin, I mean, it just seems like inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just a matter of time. And, this is why I always say, like, people store more of their value in Bitcoin according to their understanding of Bitcoin. If you have a really deep understanding of Bitcoin, it's hard to really want much of your value stored in anything else, because it's just the best risk reward asset that we've ever had. So you can choose to make money all kinds of different ways, right? Like you can make movies in Hollywood, or you can work in Wall Street in finance, or you can, start restaurants, or whatever it is that you want to do to make that money. You can trade crypto maybe, or penny stocks, or whatever else you want to do to make money. But if you make money, it's really hard to point at anything else as being a better place to put it.
Nice. I like that. That kind of leads us into my next question. Let's kind of like talk about Bitcoin versus crypto, because I think, maybe a lot of people who came in the last year and a half, they maybe have heard this, but maybe they're still trying to figure out why. So Bitcoin is different from crypto, right? Could you explain that?
I think it's just really important to understand, what Bitcoin is and what sets it apart from, altcoins, or as your show is titled, or Bitcoin versus crypto, or say Bitcoin, not crypto, is kind of a common refrain on Twitter and in Congress and things like that when people are testifying, stuff like that. I think it's just that Bitcoin it's interesting. The back half of this year, I think you have seen there's no one even making a claim or making a case to try to be money. Like there was like a few weeks there with like 5 or 6 Ethereum influencers that aren't very important, trying to say like ultrasound money or ETH is money or something like that. But even the Ethereum community basically like rejected that. And they're like, nah, we kind of like the world computer thing, or whatever it is. And every other layer one is really competing for that market. It's competing to be the platform to like do cool semi-distributed, semi-decentralized things, in what they would call DeFi or something like that. And Bitcoin just trucks along doing exactly what it was set up to do since launch almost 13 years ago. And, it keeps on adding functionality, like SegWit 4 years ago and Taproot this year. And Lightning is exploding in usage, and, the network is expanding. And, these things, they take time. It takes time to actually build a strong foundation for the future. Just like the internet, first was DARPANET or ARPANET, I should say, in the 60s, and then Internet Protocol in the 70s, and little by little, it kept growing and growing and growing. And then it was the World Wide Web in the early 90s, and Netscape browser and all that, and eventually social networking and all that kind of stuff in the aughts, and where we are today. I think it's similar. You've got a way to actually transfer value over the internet, and that's an amazing innovation, and we need to protect that innovation, and we need to foster it, and we need to help it grow. And we just need to have a little bit of patience. I mean, you don't have to. You can go and try to do all kinds of other things, but it's not gonna usurp Bitcoin's position as the money of the internet. And being the money of the internet, I think, makes you the money of the world.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And yeah, I like how seemingly like this whole year, last cycle, there was a lot of people trying to be Bitcoin or be a better Bitcoin or also be money. I like how this cycle, these things really aren't trying to be Bitcoin. And yeah, there were people saying, Ethereum is money, but it's like easy to dispel that at this point because they are controlled by, people. They're less decentralized. I think everybody can see that. This next question, I don't really know if there's like a right answer to this, just trying to pick your brain. Why be Bitcoin only and not Bitcoin and crypto?
Well, I mean, by definition, you are in a trade if you're not in Bitcoin, because this is if you hold the same views that I do, which is like, I think Bitcoin is going to be around for centuries, maybe millennia. And so I'm just not worried about it. So I sleep really well with my value being stored in Bitcoin. In my last, let's say, 6 months or something, between sort of really kind of understanding Bitcoin and to the close to the degree that I do today, in kind of early 2018 to, selling my last altcoin sometime later that year, I had trouble sleeping if I had any money in an altcoin versus Bitcoin. Similar to now, I actually have trouble sleeping if I have excess fiat. Like if I, one of my startups exits and they wire me some money or something like that, and I have like this chunk of dollars sitting in an account somewhere, like every day I want to go and like argue with my wife about putting more of that into Bitcoin because I just don't sleep well with it being in dollars. I want it to be in Bitcoin. So I think that's something that you don't find among intelligent people, like just dying to have all of their wealth in, some altcoin or something like that. It's
totally.
It's not a conviction that's widely held the way it is with lots of, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are into Bitcoin around the world are trying to stack as many sats as possible.
Totally. I like to say sometimes, and there's more to it than this, but I like to tweet sometimes, to be successful in Bitcoin, you have to learn how to hodl. To be successful in crypto, you have to learn how to adapt because things do change all the time. Yeah. It sounds like maybe, your opinion throughout 2021 on crypto has been updated a little bit. Like, have you updated your opinion on crypto at all in 2021? Or is your opinion on crypto the exact same as it was in 2020?
I think it's been exactly the same really since 2018. I think that it's mostly scams with some experiments, and it's really hard to tell the difference. And, if you're a really good trader, maybe that's a fun thing to trade. And, things that move a lot, obviously have more opportunity for gains and losses. But you can get the same thing with leverage trading Bitcoin, frankly. So if you're just gambling, then just do it well. I think probably the biggest error that I see is people get interested in Bitcoin and they want to have more Bitcoin, and they think the way to do that is to trade crypto, where really, if you have a goal of having more Bitcoin, you should look at the universe of things that you could do to make money and find the thing that you're the best at that could let you make more money. And it's not necessarily trading crypto. So I think that's kind of the main thing. Like I'm just like, you're about to spend, if you're going to be any good at this, you're probably about to spend like 20, 30 hours a week, like looking at screens, and, you know, you're not even judging something that's real. You're actually looking at, you know, marketing announcements, wondering what other people are going to think of the marketing announcement, and hoping, you know, the market is going to believe it or think that other people are going to believe it. It's all this just like machination that is based on nothing, and super big time, like kind of waste of time, really, other than, whereas a lot of other things that you could spend time on really build a foundation for something that can be much more useful and much more fruitful over time. So like if you learn how to start a business, or you actually learn how to invest in other people's businesses, or you learn a skill, or you take a class and use that and apply for a new job or whatever, like there's almost any other activity has that compounding return that will make you better able to make more money and stack more Bitcoin in the long run. You know, again, for like 99% of people, there's usually better things to do with their time than trade crypto.
I appreciate that perspective. I feel like maybe that gets lost a little bit, especially near the end of bull markets. So I appreciate you keeping it real with us. Let's talk about Swan. You mentioned some things before we started recording. You have an app coming out. Tell us some cool things on the horizon.
Popular demand that we must have an app. So yes, it's coming. It's in alpha right now. It's beautiful. Our UX team is just so good. So excited to have that, and it'll be in the App Store and everything. I was working on the Google Play Store version earlier today. And yeah, I think it'll be great. So it'll be out there in Q1, and everybody will actually be able to use the Swan app. We'll be able to pack a lot more like interesting, fun, cool content stuff and functionality, and, you know, formula buys, these types of things. I think it'll be kind of interesting. So excited about the app. Really excited to see kind of the international expansion. That's been great. That's kind of rolled out all the year of 2021, and it's probably 30 to 35% of our sales now. So that's been pretty cool outside the US. We've got, yeah, I mean, there's so many interesting things. We've done some other things we're calling Swan Labs, which are kind of products for Bitcoiners. So we've got 3 or 4 things in the works. One went live a few months back, which is Bitcoiner Jobs. So bitcoinerjobs.co is kind of the job board for the Bitcoin only industry. There's like 30 or 40 companies that post their jobs there. There's probably 120 roles up there on any given day of people, you know, and so, you know, hundreds of people have found jobs in Bitcoin over the last 3 or 4 months through that site, which is pretty awesome. Totally free.
Cool. I know as well, you guys have expanded the Swan team a lot. I think like where you once had like 10 members or less, now you have like 30 plus. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we probably started the year with maybe like 12 or something like that. I think we're 35 to 40 full-time equivalents. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. Team is all still remote, still spread out. We are starting to get a little bit of a quorum. So we've got, you know, 5 full-time people in Los Angeles, so we can get together.
Nice.
We're this close to signing a lease for a studio space that will also function as an office for people who want to work there in West LA. So that should be pretty cool. We're starting a broadcast quality weekly news show on Bitcoin.
That's awesome. Who's hosting?
That's a secret.
Oh,
well, you'll find out in January.
Cool.
Yeah, but that should be pretty cool. And we're going to try to get, you know, actually, like, we'll obviously put it on YouTube, but we're also going to try to get syndicated out and actually get it on cable, Yahoo Finance, something like that as well. So big plans there. We launched Swan Studios. So we've got 2 documentaries out now, one called This Machine Greens and another one called Bitcoin is Generational Wealth. That one's got like 160,000 views so far on YouTube. And the creators of This Machine Greens, the first one, are making a feature length, either documentary or series.
That's Brad Mills, right?
Brad was one of the financiers of that one, yes. But it's actually Jamie King and Enrique Posner are the director and the producer for that crew. But yeah, so Brad and some others are funding Trust, which is the next one. And we're basically like the publicity, a lot of marketing, a lot of, you know, distribution help, and help them line up interviews for, access people that they want to put in the movies and stuff like that. Just kind of helping on the networking side.
That's awesome. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Just have a couple questions before we finish things up. I know you guys hire salesmen for Swan. Does Bitcoin need salesmen?
It's an argument, right? Like Bitcoin is the best product in the history of the world and it should sell itself, right? But what it really comes down to is people have a lot of questions about Bitcoin. And so if you are, like a Bitcoin broker, which is more or less what we are, 95% of the conversation, if you talk to somebody for an hour, is going to be about Bitcoin itself. They're wondering, like, can't the government ban Bitcoin? What about altcoins? Like, there's all these different things they want to talk about and sort of get handheld through before they make large Bitcoin purchases. And we realized toward the beginning of this year that the only reason the crypto exchanges don't have salespeople is because there's no salesperson that can be eloquent about Bitcoin and 50 altcoins. And because, I'd imagine that the compliance department, the legal department at Coinbase would have a lot to say about a salesperson actually encouraging investment in a lot of gray area unregistered securities. But Bitcoin's totally in the clear. And, this was something we tried with one person part-time and then brought on the same guy full-time May 1st. And yeah, the team has just expanded a ton. So we've got the original people, Stephen Lubka and Terrence Yang, who were kind of the top Bitcoiners on Clubhouse as Clubhouse kind of rolled out and people were hosting Bitcoin rooms. Like I heard those guys talk about Bitcoin for probably 400, 500 hours each before bringing them on board. Nice. And then obviously some well-known Bitcoiners like Stefan Livera, who's running Swan International, and Andy Edstrom, the author of Why Buy Bitcoin, and ex-Goldman guy who runs Westcap Financial in LA. He's running Swan Advisor Services, which is, so if you have a money manager, we have somebody that can actually face off with an FA or an RIA and help that person sort of get up to speed and understand, and has all the structures and the reporting and everything that makes it easy to actually buy into a broker account, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
My final question for you, Cory, is give us your 2022 outlook and maybe 2020 decade outlook. I want to hear your thoughts on Bitcoin, Ethereum, NFTs, DeFi. How do you think it's going to play out?
Sure. So, obviously, people care about price and timing and things like that. Every day that goes by and we're not like over 150K around, Q4 or Q1 in the present time, to me is like a better chance that we're done with cycles and a better chance that there never were cycles, which is very possible. Like there was a bull market from 2011 to 2013 where we went up 550x from, $2 to 1,100. There was a bull market, or just like a down and then an up from 13 to 17, peak to peak, where we went from, trough to peak was 110x gain, right? Which is, $180 up to 19,780 or whatever the peak was in December 2017. And we don't know, like this, peak to where we are now has already been 4 years. I think wasn't it December 13th or December 16th of 2017. So that's 4 years. And this certainly doesn't feel toppy at all. Like we're in a trough right now, it's just under 50K today. We went up to 68.5 or something briefly a few weeks ago. And then there was like another crash. And that was kind of the second one where we got over 60 a few months back or whatever. And, so I think the best thing for Bitcoin is like a random walk upward in the long run. And I think it's inevitable that we end up doing that, and that this stuff is not in the long run unduly influenced by, halving cycles, just, cutting the supply issuance by half when, the new Bitcoin that comes on the market in any given day is just absolutely dwarfed by the volume of buys and sells regardless. So I just think we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I do think the price goes way up over time. And I think, I this is on Twitter, but I think I said something like, in my view, just my own mental calculations, like I'd say this like a near certainty, but certainly like over 90% for me that we at some point between now and the end of this decade are over $1 million a coin. So like, that's like my conservative case, basically. And I think there's a good chance that it ends up being like 5 million sometime in the next decade. So, and then kind of looking out, another thing I've said a lot that I don't have any reason to move off of this is thinking about that transition from store of value into medium of exchange, where a lot more people are actually spending their Bitcoin, and you're actually seeing, people actually pricing things in Bitcoin. So like how fast you could actually move from SOV into medium of exchange and then all the way to unit of account. I usually say, I think that we'll be able to buy most products and services around the world priced in sats by 2035. It's kind of a vague prediction, but I think we'll go through a pretty long period where there are goods that are priced in both sats and also whatever fiat currencies are still around. Just like if you go to, Turkey, and there's the price tag has lira, euros, and dollars on it. I think you'll be in Thailand and it'll have baht and it'll have dollars and it'll have, the Bitcoin price.
Very cool. Very cool. And any thoughts on like Ethereum, Solana, layer ones, DeFi, NFTs?
Yeah. I think, all the smart contract platforms will have to fight it out, and we'll see if there's actually, we won't know for a while whether there's actually anything sustainable or valuable there, or if this is just kind of like a leverage funded, like mega bubble, and not just leverage funded, but also just VC funded. I think the distortion in the market of just the amount of funding that crypto VCs have put into the market, because they have the market that is best matched to the venture capital funding cycle in the history of the world. In the 50 years of venture capital at an institutional scale, there's never been anything better. Every single one of their fundraising decks, when they're raising that LP money, slide 2 after the title slide is short time to liquidity, because they know that for the time being, it's just outside of regulations, and you can start a project or get on board with a project, market it like crazy with absolutely no regard for securities laws about how you market something. You can say whatever you want about Cardano, right? Like you literally claim it's going to like cure cancer and go to the moon and fund Elon, and like it doesn't matter. So they don't have to follow the same rules that securities do today. But there was a time when you could have online gambling sites and nobody would mess with you, and that time lasted for a little while, and eventually the regulators came around and kind of shut it down. I expect that there's going to be, when I look at like Brian Armstrong tweeting like, hey, we at Coinbase just want to be treated the same as these offshore guys like the, whatever, Nexo, Celsius, crypto.com, whatever, like, why are you picking on us? We should get the same treatment as those guys. Meanwhile, every Ponzi operator and penny stock guy and like Agora financial newsletter publisher is like, hey, we just want to be regulated like Coinbase. We just want to be able to like, have an exchange and market all this stuff, and, however we want to. So I think that rationalization has to come of, most of these things are securities, if not all of them. And we'll see what that does to the market. I think we'll see if any of them are actually decentralized enough to keep going after that shoe drops. And then we'll let the free market decide from there.
I love it. Cory, thank you so much for being on today. I encourage our whole audience to check out Swan. Use the affiliate link in the top of the comments below. I use Swan. I like Swan. Cory, final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Yeah, honestly, just keep learning. Really, that's what it's all about. Like, you don't have to be ashamed at all of being interested in what's going on out there. I spent almost a year messing around with every crypto under the sun, from early 2017 to 2018, before I kind of got to the point where I felt I really understood what was going on and what Bitcoin was. And it was kind of what I wanted to focus on. But, it's all about continuing to learn. It's all about seeking out good information. And, I think you got a good friendly guide in the AL Daily guys. And I love that you guys are Bitcoiners that, don't just sort of abandon the flock and keep on pushing the education. So happy to come back on, anytime to discuss. And you can find me on Twitter. It's really easily easy to find me. Oh, one other thing that I started since the last time we chatted is I have a daily newsletter now, just an educational newsletter. And I think it's a pretty cool concept and people seem to love it. So it's cory.substack.com. And basically we went through and gathered all of the best individual pieces of content from the history of Bitcoin education from the last 12 years. So it's the best podcast episodes, the best YouTube videos, the best articles, blog posts, whatever. And you just get one each day with a short introduction of like why I think it's important, Monday through Friday. So I highly recommend just grabbing a sub to that. And I think it's a good way to start plugging in and kind of supplementing your Bitcoin education.
Totally. Thank you so much, Cory. You're welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aaron. Bye, everybody.